What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. And if you are a New York Rangers fan sitting at home thinking that this offseason has been chaotic, let me tell you right now, you have absolutely no idea how deep this rabbit hole actually goes. Because today we are pulling back the curtain on everything. The moves, the mistakes, the rumors, the drama, and most importantly, the one massive problem looming over this franchise that nobody is talking about loudly enough. So smash that like button, make sure you are subscribed if you are new here, and let's get into it because there is a lot to unpack. Let's start from the beginning because context matters here. The New York Rangers cratered last season. They sank to the worst record in the entire Eastern Conference, with locker room turmoil swirling around them practically all year long. Nearly everyone on the roster became trade fodder by the 2026 deadline. Think about that for a second. This is Madison Square Garden. This is Broadway. This is the most famous hockey building in North America, and they were fielding a team so broken that almost every single player had their name attached to a trade rumor at some point. That is not a team in a rough patch. That is a franchise in a full-blown identity crisis, and the problem runs way deeper than just one bad season. Now Chris Drury, the GM, he tried to soften the blow. He infamously sent a letter out to Rangers fans discussing the team's plan going forward, saying he wants the team to retool and potentially push for the Stanley Cup playoffs. And look, I understand the PR play there. You write a letter, you acknowledge the pain, you promise a brighter future, and you hope the fanbase calms down. But words on paper do not win hockey games, and what happened next is where things get genuinely complicated. Because here is the thing about a retool versus a rebuild. It is a philosophical line that this organization cannot seem to commit to crossing cleanly. While the season can easily be described as a retool, that is the comfortable label teams use when rebuild would send everyone screaming toward the exits. And that tension, that inability to fully commit to tearing things down or fully commit to pushing all the chips back in, that is the real problem. That right there is what has this franchise stuck in neutral even as the offseason winds down. You cannot be half pregnant in the NHL. You are either building for now or building for later, and the Rangers are somehow trying to do both at the same time, and it is creating confusion from top to bottom. Yard Barker. Let's talk about the moves because Drury has been busy. I'll give him that. The Rangers added 9 players to the organizational pipeline through the 2026 NHL draft and brought in 11 new players via trades and free agency. 11 players. That is practically a whole new roster. So on paper it looks like action, it looks like urgency, it looks like a team that is serious about getting better. But when you dig into the details, some of these moves raise serious questions about the direction of this franchise. The biggest acquisition of the summer was Pavel Dorofeyev, ripped away from the Vegas Golden Knights. And on the surface, this is exciting. Dorofeyev is young, he's electric, he's exactly the kind of player Rangers fans have been begging for. He's receiving a lucrative pay raise from his former contracts that paid below $2 million AAV, and New York has made him the second highest earning rostered player on the forward group. That tells you how serious the Rangers are about this kid. But here is where it gets murky. The Rangers sent the number 26 and number 92 picks in the 2026 NHL draft, plus a top 10 protected 2028 first-round selection to Vegas for Dorofeyev. They also moved a top 10 protected 2030 first-round pick to Vancouver for defenseman Marcus Pettersson. That is a considerable price for a team coming off consecutive seasons outside the playoffs. Read that again. 2 top 10 protected first-round picks. Gone. For a team that just finished last in the Eastern Conference. Now I am not saying Dorofeyev is not worth it. Maybe he becomes a superstar. Maybe Pettersson stabilizes the blue line. But the cost of failure here just went through the roof, and that brings us to the massive problem nobody wants to say out loud. What happens if it does not work? If it does not, the Rangers will have a much larger problem than another quiet April. Because they have now traded away the very assets they would need to rebuild properly. They have burned the lifeboats. This is not a team that can afford another last-place finish. Not with this kind of draft capital gone. Not with these kinds of contracts on the books. The margin for error in New York is razor thin right now, and yet the roster still has glaring holes. The biggest hole, and this is not even a debate among serious hockey people, is down the middle. The New York Rangers need to address the center position in the near future. And near future might actually be an understatement because right now this team does not have a true number one center. Vincent Trocheck is gone. The forward core has been significantly altered with the trade of Artemi Panarin to the Los Angeles Kings midway through last season and Vincent Trocheck departing to the Utah Mammoth this summer. New York has a hole in their current offensive rotation that they need to fill if they wish to get back into the playoff mix. So they lost their best forward and their best center within the same calendar year. And the free agent market? It dried up before the Rangers could even get a bid in. What once appeared to be an incredible UFA class in 2026 dried up when superstars like Connor McDavid, Jack Eichel, Kirill Kaprizov, Martin Necas, Kyle Connor, and even old friend Artemi Panarin re-upped with their current teams. The guys that could have changed the franchise gone, staying right where they are. So now the Rangers are looking at a roster that has energy, that has youth, that has some promise, but that has a gaping black hole at the most important position in hockey. Mika Zibanejad is still here, and before the comments fill up, let me acknowledge that. But Mika is a second-line center at best at this stage of his career, and asking him to carry the top-line load for a team trying to make the playoffs is not a realistic expectation. Projecting scoring outputs for Mika Zibanejad, Alexis Lafreniere, Gabe Perreault, and Pavel Dorofeyev entering the 2026-27 season is a fun exercise, but no projection model is going to cover up the fact that this forward group, as currently constructed, lacks a true difference-making center in the lineup. And the Rangers know it. Acquiring an elite forward would be very expensive for this team, and it is difficult to pull off moves this late in the offseason. If the Rangers are to make a further addition, that move may have to wait until the new season gets underway and league activity picks up again. That is a polite way of saying they might be going into training camp with a massive problem and hoping it solves itself. Now let's talk about the defense because there is another storyline developing here that has been flying under the radar. The right side appears set with Adam Fox, Sean Durzi, and Braden Schneider grabbing the 3 spots. Unless the Rangers trade Schneider, though that seems less likely now than it did earlier in the offseason. Schneider filed for arbitration after he received a qualifying offer and could be headed to another bridge contract with unrestricted free agency 2 years away. The addition of Durzi to play on the second pair puts Schneider in a familiar third pair role, but those trade rumors will not go away. So even on the blue line, where the Rangers are supposed to be set with Adam Fox anchoring everything, there is uncertainty. Schneider's future is unclear, and there have been whispers, real whispers, about Fox himself. The New York Rangers could be making a massive mistake by keeping Adam Fox this season, considering that his value will not get any higher. Now that is a spicy take, and I know some of you are already typing in the comments, but think about it from a pure asset management perspective. Fox is a Norris Trophy winner. He is one of the best defensemen in the world. And this team is not a contender right now. At some point the question becomes, do you trade from a position of strength to fill a position of weakness? And then there is the coaching situation, which adds another layer of pressure to all of this. The hiring of Mike Sullivan indicated that the expectation was a return to the postseason. Sullivan won back-to-back Stanley Cups in Pittsburgh. He is not a developmental coach. He is not a patient rebuilder. He is a close the gap, compete every night, push for the cup kind of coach. And that is fantastic if you have the roster to support it. But bringing in a coach of Sullivan's caliber and then handing him a roster with a center ice problem, unresolved trade rumors, and a fan base that has been burned twice in 2 years creates enormous pressure on everybody inside that organization. Former New York Rangers goalie Martin Byron says that the only way the 2026-27 season can be considered successful is if they make the playoffs and advance past the first round. Past the first round. Not just make the playoffs, advance. That is the bar in New York. And right now, with this roster, that bar is going to be incredibly difficult to clear. Look, there is talent here. Gabe Perreault is going to be an absolute breakout star, I genuinely believe that. Dorofeyev brings an element of skill this team has been missing since Panarin left. Vladislav Gavrikov heads the left side of the defense, where he will once again slot in next to Fox to form a terrific top pairing. The bones are there. The potential is real. But potential does not put you in the postseason, and right now the Rangers are trying to thread an impossibly thin needle. Young enough to have upside, experienced enough to compete, but caught in between in a way that could doom them to mediocrity for another full year. Chris Drury has stated that his team is still on the lookout for more help, saying they are still tinkering, still looking, And any way they can help the team between now and opening night, they are going to keep trying. And I respect the hustle. But tinkering around the edges is not going to solve a center problem. It is not going to fix a locker room that spent last season in turmoil. It is not going to suddenly make this team a legitimate Stanley Cup contender. The Rangers need a defining move, a big swing. And right now, with their draft capital depleted and the free agent market dried up, the options for that big swing are extremely limited. That is the real story here. That is the bigger problem than anyone is letting on. It is not just one bad season. It is not just losing Panarin. It is a franchise at a crossroads without a clear identity, without a true number one center, with a head coach whose window for competing is measured in seasons not decades, and with a GM who has surrendered future picks to make moves that might not be enough. The clock is ticking on Broadway, and the sound is getting louder by the day. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Can the Rangers make the playoffs this year? And what move do they need to make to get over the top? I want to hear from you. Like the video if you got value out of this. Subscribe if you are new, and I will see you in the next one. Let's go Rangers!